how I'm like enough, and you're like, yeah, I've enough.
I do.
Okay, it's about again sometimes 20 seconds, sometimes 40 seconds. I'm not really sure.
All right.
Um, and
I'm here for the
I
wait.
also think like we've been on Mars. Like, how are we still so slow with this technology?
I've never used this technology you're using today.
Oh, we're already live. Well, this went way faster. Okay. Hello, 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 everyone. This is your favorite legendary opinionated Amerislav here today at Rich and Hydrated. By the way, when I say rich and hydrated, for the listeners and watchers, that's when you take a little sip. Because ain't nobody getting rich like a dry raisin. And today with us, we have Angela. Angela, give me a short
Yes,
intro before I start bombing you with questions.
fair enough. Well, my name is Angela. I am a speech pathologist by trade. So I work predominantly with geriatric patients in healthcare as my primary job. I help rehabilitate people who have lost their ability to speak, people who have lost their ability to swallow. And I'm well versed in neuroscience and just kind of neuroplasticity and what happens to our body. And then I actually lost my infant daughter when she was 2 months and 2 days old. And so what came from that was a really rough and tough road. But I found solace in some of the things I would do with my own patients. And so when everybody else was, hey, I don't know how you're doing it, I fell back on my training. And so a lot of my day job is predominantly working with the grief surrounding people who have lost their function. And I thought, what would happen if I used those same strategies that I use for their grief for my own grief? And so I started doing just that. And I started attacking things from more of a neuroplasticity part of things, a mindset part of grief, whereas a lot of people don't talk about that. They just talk about talk therapy. And it's brought me here. It's brought me to serving the infant and pregnancy loss community in a way that many people aren't. And it brought me to you too. So we are here now celebrating that. And I couldn't be more thrilled.
I wasn't distracted, by the way. I was just making a note so people knew where to find us.
Okay.
I've been binge watching your TikTok, right? And well, for one, I'm wondering how much of it is cultural. One thing that you discussed, which I love that you discussed, I love when you get like make other people uncomfortable, like here fucking for it, is the responses that people have when they learn about how do you refer to it, like um terrifying event, like the loss of your daughter, like whichever word and we're going to use, right? And by the way, feel free to correct me any fucking second too. um but the inability to hold space
Yes.
and wanting
Yes.
to relate,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
one thing that, and so I don't have kids, by the way. I have a huge kid wish. I'm not sure if the gods are going to provide, but that's okay. But even I, as someone who has like a lot of animals and has like a wild connection, I always fucking cringe when people go like, losing my animal was like losing a child. I'm like, no, bitch, no, the fuck it ain't. No, the fuck it ain't.
Absolutely. That so you have two sides of the coin, right? So people are going to be like, "Well, hey, my fur babies are my children, and how dare you say how I can grieve?" And really what it centers around is it's not even about comparing. What pisses us off, what is complete bullshit, isn't that you think your fur baby is the same as my child. If that's what you want to think, that is on you. I'm not mad about that. What I'm mad about is holding the space, like you said, holding that space for somebody when they talk about something traumatic that has happened to them, right? It's about receiving that information with compassion, with empathy, not just immediately turning that script and making it about you, right? Making it about the fact that you're uncomfortable. So now we're going to diminish that person's feelings. That is what pisses me off.
I hear that. And I wonder, like there's this weird thing in us humans that where we want to like show that we care by pulling out some kind of abstract comparison. And I always have this look. I have from a rough background, right? So when people go like, oh yeah, I've been catcalled once, and then you want to compare it to my like, whatever. I'm like, no, No, it ain't it. It ain't it. Like, we could talk about your catcalling experience too, or whatever. But I wonder why it is that people just cannot be like, I have no idea what that must be like, but I can see that that's fucking rough, or that must be fucking horrible. Like, why does it have to be a comparison? Why do we do that?
And really in the grief space, that's a great question. But in the grief space, it's predominantly because people are uncomfortable, right? That language or words you just said to them, or that situation, it flashes right in front of their face. That could happen to me. Holy shit, right? So when they can't sit with those uncomfortable feelings. And just as a society as a whole, we're never taught from a young age how to process those emotions, how to process the things that are said to us when they are hard, when they are traumatic. It's so much easier for people to run away from that. And because we teach people history and we teach people science, but we don't teach people emotional regulation. I mean, I never had those courses when I was in grade school, college. And so it's not something we're comfortable with, on top of the fact that it shows us life is short and anything at any moment can happen.
What is your and this is just like a personal side question. So for us in East Europe, we cope by having extremely dark humor. Like, we come from a communist background, right? So like, we'll joke about not having food any fucking day. Like, oh, before the potatoes are off the table again, like, you fucking binge that shit. That's why you have an eating disorder. Like, that's one of the things that we used to always say in that. And in America, everyone's like, grieve and process however you want, but just as long as it's this type of way. Like, there's an aesthetic to grieving. And you're here about the realness.
Yes, you're not wrong. Some people do use dark humor, right? Like, I've seen it across social media, and that's great, and I encourage that. But you're right. 98% of the people who then run into that video on social media immediately tell those people that they're grieving wrong, immediately tell them that that's not the way to do it, right? Well, what does that do? That just pulls them back even further and puts them further into a shell, because now they're like, what the hell? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm dealing with this the best way I know how, what's helpful for me. And now you have people who haven't experienced that same situation in any regard telling you that you're doing it wrong. So you're right. It is, I'm sure the States, the mainland US, is very, very different. We tend not to process things with humor. It tends to offend people, right? Very much so, it offends people. And so, yeah, I'm all about speaking out against that. I'm all about processing your trauma and whatever you're going through in the best way that you know how, and fuck everybody else. Like, it's not about them at the end of the day. It is about you. And the only way that you can show up for yourself and your family later down the road in any regard that is going to resemble normal, right, or typical, is by doing what you need to do with your own grief. And so that's what I'm here for. I'm here to empower people.
How much of that is connected to being willing to take up space as the person whose grief it is?
Oh, a lot of it. Yeah. And that's a huge mindset shift, right? Because at least here in the United States, people don't like to take up space. They don't like in that regard, right? They take up space with their accomplishments. They take up space with what they're doing with their children. Let me tell you about this. Let me tell you how our weekend was. Let me tell you about our vacation. Let me flash in front of Facebook and show you all this. But they don't like to take up space when they think it's going to burden somebody, or when they think somebody's going to have to provide something for them, or even just sit with them. And so, yes, you are 1,000,000% correct.
Is that something that you, because I have so many questions. Let's start with, are you willing or wanting to share what your back story is? What was the catalyst to you getting where you are right now?
Yeah, like, I don't mind sharing that. Well, first of all, my infant daughter died not even in my care. My infant daughter died in my aunt's care. I had bronchitis, and the doctor told me that for 24 hours, I needed to have antibiotics in my system before I picked her back up. And that night, my aunt fed her, changed her, put her to sleep, and she never woke up. And I got a phone call from my mom saying, you need to go to the hospital. And so that was really difficult because I blamed myself, right? There was a blame game. And so I immediately, what puts me where I am now, I immediately played the victim. I immediately was like, my daughter died. This sucks. The world owes me something. These people don't know how I feel because they didn't experience the loss of a child. You almost like want to reserve into your own shell, but you also want to shout from the rooftops, my child died. Why are you an asshole? My child died. Why are you reacting like that? Hello, over here. My kid died. Like, it's almost like you don't want people to know, but at the same time, you want everybody to know because you don't know how to navigate the world around you. And so that is what happened to me. I played a victim for the first probably 2 months after my daughter died. And the stupidest thing is what made me realize that I needed to put myself in check because I was not helping myself or anyone else. I was walking into a Target with my really good friend. And when your kid dies, you have blinders on. Nothing else in the world matters. And I'm usually a very bubbly, very polite, I'm glass half full all the time kind of person. I was walking in with my friend. Somebody was walking in as well and behind us. And I just opened the door, pushed it open, didn't hold it. They were directly behind me. Didn't hold it for me, them, nothing. Didn't say, here you go. Wasn't kind to them. Just kept about my business. And it kind of like shut in their face, like legit shut in their face. And my friend had the balls to call me out. Kudos to her. She had the balls to call me out and say, that wasn't cool. And I was like, what? And she's like, you let that door slam in that person's face. And I was like, I don't care. She's like, what do you mean you don't care? And I was like, I don't know them. She's like, do you have to know them to be kind? And I was like, holy fuck. And then I said, well, I'm just really stressed and everything, really just reminds me of Aviani, and we're going in here and there's a baby section and there's this and there's that. And she goes, that person has no control over that, Angela. It's not their fault. She was like, and even if something was somebody's fault, that's not how you treat other people. She legit lit into me. And I was like, holy shit, she's absolutely right. I have been playing a victim this entire time because it's easier, right? It's easier to play a victim. It's easier to blame everybody else. It's easier not to sit with my feelings, journal about my feelings, try to change my behavior, try to learn strategies that are going to be helpful. It's easier to just sit with it and just complain about it. And so after that happened, I was like, I'm never doing that again. And I have to find a way out of this.
It's interesting when you just observing my own inner dialogue, when you share that timeline, that my first initial response, like, oh, but 2 months is so fresh. Of course you're going to be that way. Assuming that there's a timeline to grieve.
Well, yeah. And so that's the key too, right? Like I talked about before, everybody has their idea of how you should be grieving. Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks, oh, it's been 3 weeks. You should be a little bit better. It's been 3 months. You should be back to where you were. It's been a year. You shouldn't miss your child anymore. And I let that influence and impact me. And because of that, I had the reactions I had. Yeah. So you're right. That people say all the time, it's my biggest pet peeve. If you were to ask me on this podcast, one thing that drives me incredibly insane about this space, I will always say the same thing. And it's that people say time heals all wounds. And it pisses me off so bad because it is not time. It is what you choose to do with the time that you are given after that traumatic event that makes or breaks you. If you just sit around and hang out and hope that grief's going to pass you by, you're not going to get anywhere. So for people to say that, it's such a disservice, but it keeps 98% of people stuck because that's what they think. They think, oh, people tell me it's going to get better over time. I'm just waiting this out, right? I don't have to be an active participant in that. And that's such a disservice because it's the furthest thing from the truth. The only thing that time gives you is the ability to learn strategies that work, the ability to discard ones that don't, the ability to tweak those, to sit with yourself, to determine what is going to be beneficial for you and your family, not Sally down the road. And so that is really hard. There's no timeline on grief. It's not linear either. I can have 10 years since my daughter died. Today could be a fantastic day. Tomorrow could be a train wreck. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
I wonder if that's one of those phrases that got pulled out of context and it just became like There's a bunch of phrases floating in general virtually that used to be like, when people steal your shit, it's like flattery and like that. But that's just one part of the phrase.
Yep.
Like it's like a way longer phrase in reality. And I wonder if that's the case with the time heals things, everything as well, because time doesn't heal things. Time heals wounds and turns them into scars if you don't keep jabbing at them. Like that's also a caveat. But and you still have to treat scars differently than a fucking normal skin, if we're just going to use like normal language. What are some of I guess the biggest misconceptions and misunderstandings that you bump into about grief, or that were very prevalent for yourself? The time one, 100% glorious one, right? Like it's time is not passive. You have to, yeah.
Another one is that somebody grieving always has to be sad. That if somebody grieving laughs or has a good day, what does that say about them? Do they not miss their child? Do they not love their child? It doesn't even have to be a child, right? It could be anything. It could be a brother. It could be a sister. It could be you lost your job. It could be you lost your home and you went into, default. But that assumption that because somebody's struggling with something, they have to be sad. They have to be upset about it. It has to be hard. It can be both. That's another misconception, whether it's hard and easy or happy and sad, opposites. It does not have to be one or the other. Grief can have many emotions occurring simultaneously. Mm-hmm. And so that's a huge misconception as well. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I see the wheels turning.
Yeah. I love it. By the way, has anyone ever like verbally told you that you should be over it by now?
Oh yeah. You will get the most ignorant comments that you can even imagine.
That's a great way to get stabbed. Like, yeah. That's holy fucking shit.
And it's two extremes, right? I just talked about. I've had somebody say like, "Oh, like it's been a year. Like I thought you would be over it by now." That came out of their mouth. I've also had somebody say, "I didn't think you would be laughing." I have this on like a story on, social media somewhere. "I didn't think you'd be laughing." I said, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Well, Aviana didn't die that long ago. Like I thought you would be sadder or more sad or, And I was like, "What?
Sorry, I'm not sad enough for you."
Like, what does that even mean? Like, what context does it's bizarre. But yeah, people, they will say the most ignorant things. That's another pet peeve of mine. And another thing that people don't realize grieving people deal with on the regular are the things that come out of people's mouths that are either cliche lines that are supposed to be helpful or just the things they don't think about because they're uncomfortable. I had somebody say to me, "At least she didn't survive and then was brain dead." I've had that said to me before. Like, yep. You're preaching, girl. I know. Yep. Yeah. Like just why would you say that?
I'm so lost. Like there's sometimes when people say dumb shit, I'm like, oh, maybe if I work really fucking hard, I can see how they got there. And I'm just like, nope, lost. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. No, that one's a good one. But also, the other one, I don't have other children that are living. I've had a miscarriage after Aviana, but the notion that I deal with this with my clients all the time, the notion that your rainbow baby or your other children make up for the death of your child. So people will often say, well, at least you have other kids, or you need to be strong for your kids at home. Like, so I'm not supposed to grieve because I have other children. I'm not supposed to process the death of my daughter because other people are at home with me and rely on me. But yeah, they will often say, well, at least you have other kids.
It also implies that if you have to be strong for others, it implies that grief is weakness.
It does, which is huge in our culture, at least in the United States.
Oh, shit.
Mm-hmm. They also imply that it's like that catch-22, like I said. You shouldn't be over it yet. You should be over it. So then they assign this meaning and this kind of target on people. Like, well, since you should be over it, let's label you with prolonged grief disorder. Like, I don't know about you, but pretty sure after 6 months, it probably shouldn't be normal to not be sad that you lost your child. But we like to label people with labels instead of helping them through things, instead of helping them to recognize that there's other ways. What works for me doesn't always work for you, right? I mean,
No, go. Sorry.
I mean, I was just going to say, with my own patients outside of grief, what works for Mr. Smith isn't going to work for Eileen over here, because they're different humans. Their brains work differently. You know, I mean, yeah, our brains as a whole process things similarly,
Sure.
but I have strengths, I have weaknesses. They're different than your strengths, they're different than your weaknesses. I have preferences of how I process information. I have preferences of what tasks I like to do, activities I like to do. We can't just assume that in 6 months somebody is going to be over something, and if they're not, we're going to label them with a label.
Well, you know, so America and its labels is great. Like, I'm always labeled autistic, and I'm just like, no, I'm just fucking from East Europe. We just like don't have that much emotions. That's just the difference. But I wonder how much of it has to do with, because like corporate settings, like their formulas, right? Like after an event, you get, I don't know what it is in America, but in Europe, you'll get like 3 days off, and then you'll back to work.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, so I feel like we even miss ritual in the modern West, because this is not America, this is the modern West. So everything from Germany onward West, right? Canada, Australia, UK, everything, like, again, the modern West. Whereas, like, you see it in soccer, where if someone dies, they wear the black bracelet, armlet,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like or just wearing black in general for an X amount of day. And it's been really interesting to see the collective response, regardless of what we think of the people, because I don't want to go into that, but like the Erica Kirk, like her being crucified for her grieving incorrectly, right? And I'm like, I don't even know y'all know how to grieve actually for yourself. What are some of the things that have, I don't want to say help you again, because I don't want to imply that there's something that need to be fixed, but that have supported you during your process?
And no, you're right. You can say help, because there are things that are going to be more helpful than others, for sure. The first thing was when I actually understood what was going on in my brain. So because I had the basis in neuroscience, I feel like I had an advantage. I will say I had an advantage. I don't think I had an advantage in the terms of exploring the knowledge that I had or exploring education surrounding grief. Everyone has that option. So I definitely had drive and initiation for that. But what helped me was understanding how my brain did a complete 180 and now was processing the world around me. It's like there was before Aveanna and now there's after Aveanna. And your brain actually changes when that happens, right? Your brain shifts completely. And so when your brain shifts, I learned all of the things, and I already knew, dealing with my patients, what shifts for them and why their world looks so different and why it's difficult to show up for themselves, why they battle the general public, why they feel misunderstood, why they feel misguided. I learned that on a deeper scale in terms of infant loss. And that was the key to my success, because then once I learned what actually happened in my brain outside of what I already knew, I then said, well, I know the brain is pliable. I know the brain is, we use this term a lot, neuroplasticity. We're able to shift and change it, right? And once I knew that, I was like, okay, now it just becomes a plan. How do I do that? How do I do that in what's best for me? And so what really helped me, I'm a writer, and I know that I do really well with written language. And so I started writing personally every single day to my daughter, but not in a way that I'm just journaling out loud. I wrote to my daughter as if I was showing her things, as if I was telling her things. For instance, say it was 4th of July week. I would write to her, but I'd teach her about 4th of July and our independence and all of that good stuff. And so I would teach her as I wrote. Or if I went on vacation and say I went to like Savannah, Georgia, in my writing, I would say, all right, this is where it's located, this part of the United States, this is the climate, this is the weather, it's typically warmer than this part. So it was almost like I was teaching her about my life and about the world through my writing. And that really helped me because it made me feel like she was still close to me in some regard, right? Which, by the way, has been ridiculed by so many people that it's unhealthy that I write to my daughter as if she is a living child still, which we won't even go there. But so that's what I'm saying. Like everybody has something different that is going to work for them typically. And those were the two things: learning about my grief, learning how it changed my brain, deciding there was a plan, deciding what that process was, what that looked like for me, and then journaling to my daughter and writing directly to her really, really helped me. Those were like the main ones for me.
Well, you said we don't have to go there, but maybe we go there. Like people said that you shouldn't be writing to your daughter that passed away. Like I think it's so as an outsider, and again, I no weight in it, right? Like it seems like such an honor to her and keeping her memory alive. I don't know which wording to use. Like that seems like a beautiful thing, actually.
Yeah. I thought so too. And it also helped me. It helped me to process all of those feelings without just venting my feelings, right? There's a difference between writing to just write it all out, or and sometimes complain. I'm going to be honest. Like sometimes people write to complain. That is very different than having a purpose and a guided talk, whether it's with your dead child, whether it's with your mom, whether it's with your dad. Those are two very different things. Those type of conversations is where you find perspective shifts, not in the brain dumping, you're complaining for the day. That's not where you shift your perspective. And think about it when you talk to other people in your life. If you have one really good friend that is constantly fielding your complaints or your woe is me energy, right? That person doesn't help you shift your perspective very often. If you sit down and think about it, they just agree with you. They just make you feel better at that moment because they're validating you. But you need more than just validation. And so writing to my daughter gave me validation, but other people say it's unhealthy because I'm writing to somebody who's not even here. And that has been the argument throughout the social media communities. I have countless messages and comment upon comment that says you need therapy, you need to go see somebody, this is unhealthy.
I fucking love the you need therapy. Yeah, let's therapize everyone into fucking oblivion by little fucking kids who came out of fucking university at 21 years old who haven't gone through shit. Yes.
Which, by the way, I'm not an opponent to therapy. I think it is very great and a good resource and tool if it is done properly. But in my experience, I went through 5 different therapists and none of them could meet me where I was because they didn't understand what I was going through, right? They didn't get it. They tried to clinical everything. That's what they tried to do. And I'm like, this cannot be clinical right now. It has to be okay to not be okay. And that is something that we need to talk about people with. And so that, I think that's even more frustrating. You need to go to therapy. Why? So I can be told things that aren't helpful for me, that weren't helpful for me for years. And I can't even say years. I tried it for 6 months maybe. And I was like, after the 5th therapist, I was like, this is not working because everybody wanted to make it clinical. Everybody wanted to make it what they were taught in school, right? We can be book smart, but we still need to implement and apply those things. And many people cannot guide you in order to do that.
Yeah. And so so I've been in the Looney house twice, like fully living in a nut house. So I have kind of an unconventional opinion about therapy. For one, back in the day it was different. I love the CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy model. It's very helpful for people like me who have anger issues. But aside from that, especially in America, therapy is a fucking subscription model. It tries to keep you in. And 2, it's only allowed to operate within the borders that they are given. That's why I love coaches so much, right? Because they don't have these borders. They don't have a book because let's be fucking honest. Sometimes very unconventional advice is the one that heals you. Yeah, you should fucking light this fucking car on fire, or yeah, you should fucking like, you know, punch a fucking. Well, I'm just, you see, an actual therapist would never be allowed to say that, right?
Right.
So, and yeah, so yes, I love that you are now in the position of a coach. Is that the terminology you use?
Yeah, I just say like I'm a grief mentor. Yeah.
Grief mentor. Gotcha. Yeah. Because that's what we need. We need people with real life experience.
Well, because the reality is you have to be able to meet somebody where they are, right? You can't just cookie cutter this shit. Whether it's grief, whether it's business, whether it's a sport you're playing, right? Everybody, like I said before, responds differently. So what's happening is people are trying to say, here are the really helpful things that regulate your nervous system, but they're not helping you to determine if they're right for you. And then once they give you something that's supposed to regulate your nervous system, if it doesn't work for you, they have no idea how to tweak that. They just give you something else because, oh, that's not working. Well,
it's
let's
like
do
a flow chart.
Yes, absolutely. When really it's like, I think because I'm a speech pathologist at heart, and when somebody loses their ability to speak, I can't just be like, well, that didn't work. Here's the next thing. Like, I have to actually engage with that person, get like down and dirty. All right, well, if it didn't work because of this, like, can we shift this part of language? Can we shift, some semantic stuff, some syntax? What is it that is actually the root cause of this? And because I do that so like in the trenches with my patients, I then can take that skill set and do it also in the grief world. And that's what people need. They don't need to jump from journaling to walking in nature, right? To like vagus nerve regulation, to somatic experience. Like, that's not helping anyone. We need to find what's great for that person or what they actually have interest in. And then we need to figure out how we tweak it when things get hard, because things are going to get hard no matter what modality you pick, no matter what path you choose. Things are going to get hard in any of them. You have to be the person to be able to take that person through that path and say, I know it's really hard right now, but this is what we can do to try to shift that. You also have to be honest with people and not pretend that that's going to be the fix, not pretend that that is going to just work wonders in the next 2 weeks. You have to be honest and say, listen, I honestly don't know if this is going to work. However, in my experience, this is what has happened before, and this tends to be the more looked for outcome. But people don't do that. They don't do it. And it's so incredibly frustrating because to me, it's simple. It's simple work, shifting and tweaking and figuring out the puzzle piece, right? And because other people find it so daunting and so hard, and they just maybe don't want to do it because it's hard work, it's a disservice to everybody. And that's really frustrating for me.
Oh, that's
sorry. I got like super passionate.
No, I love it. I love it. I'm here for the energy. What was when you look back at your journey, and perhaps even of some of those of your patients, where did you find your balance between? I'm looking for words. Give me a little second.
That's fine. I do that all day long with my patients.
Right. Like diving deep into your sadness and your grief, and it being allowed to just be that deep. For me, it's a little bit like tar, like heavy, versus at some point you have to cognitively be like, okay, I also need to hydrate, right? Because for most people, when we are in some version of grief, like we don't want to eat, we don't want to drink, probably just want to sit in the dark, right? And I think there's a space for that, right? So at what point, or what does that look like when you have to slowly like introduce supportive things for your body again? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's obviously different for everybody else, right? People process emotions and grief differently. So I think for me, I almost think I say I had a disadvantage, I had an advantage, and I don't know if that's really accurate or it's just me knowing that the kind of person I am inside is a go-getter. But for me, I feel like that happened early on, and it's because what I started doing almost immediately after the really sad, heavy days where I didn't get out of bed for a couple weeks, and my colleagues were nice enough to donate PTO so I didn't have to go to work and all of that. Mundane tasks were really difficult, taking a shower, going to the grocery store. So when I started recognizing, 3 or 4 weeks in, that I have to kind of start getting back to society, I have to start moving forward. What helped me and what that looked like for me was relying on the people in my life that were still there and that recognized how big of a deal this was to me, and actually asking them for help. So if I needed groceries, okay, maybe I can't get there, but the first step is asking somebody else maybe to do it for me this week. And then maybe next week, asking that friend to then take me to the grocery store so I don't have to plan and drive. And, it's all those little small intricate pieces that are really hard on those early days and those early weeks and months. So I tell people it's about setting intention for a single thing. And that is when things started to shift for me. It's like any habit we create in our life, right? If somebody, I like to use the analogy of going to the gym. If somebody is struggling with their weight, or they're struggling with getting to the gym and they want to get healthier, and they're like, well, I don't have time, or when I wake up in the morning, things are rushed, and they have a list of excuses. You need to prepare ahead of time for that. Like, I had spine surgery and I was in such good shape. And then after spine surgery, I couldn't do lifting or work out for like a year. I could only walk. When I went back to that, it was really, really tough mentally for me because I'm not anywhere near where I was, right? And I kept making a list of excuses, just like in grief, in your early stages of grief, it's easy to do that. So then you have to take one thing, work on one thing. I laid my clothes out every single night, packed my bag every single night, packed my lunch every single night, so that when I woke up in the morning, I could get dressed, brush my teeth, everything was ready. I had no excuses. Just making these small little shifts in your everyday life, picking one goal for a single 2 weeks and working on that one goal. If you get other things outside of that goal set and done, great. If you don't, that's okay too. Committing to that one thing and that consistency over time is what's going to help you. And that is what I noticed. I was really good on picking up small little intricate parts of a task that I could break down and ask for help with. And when I started asking for help, it then motivated me to start doing a little bit more each time on my own.
Were you an ask for helper person?
No. I've never.
Let's talk about the hyper independence.
You're right. I am the most independent of all independent.
All the women who independent.
I know you are. Yes. You and I get along in that regard for sure. No, I was not. So again, this shows you how much hard work goes into it, right? Because not only have you done a 180 in your life, and now you kind of have a completely different brain and mindset after the loss of a child or a big traumatic experience. Do you think it was easy for me to ask for help? Hell no. Fuck no. But I knew myself, and I knew the only way out was through and by means of the people who care about me and were still there with me. So I had to reserve time to retrain and remap my brain and the neural connections in order to start asking for help more regularly, because that was not built into my DNA anywhere.
So, and just for the listeners, so us hyper independent women, us hyper independent people, just in general, we love helping others. We love potentially even rescuing others. But lo behold, the weakness and the vulnerability of having to ask for help. I'd rather drag myself through the mud and perish and open my skin rather than ask for help. Not anymore though, but that I know that was for me. It's just like hyper independence is such a pain in the ass because you're like robbing others from loving you and be there for you in the way that you are for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you hold yourself to these ridiculous standards. And when you don't meet those standards, some day, month, year, whatever happens, and you're like kicking yourself in the ass and you're like, oh, what's wrong with me? I'm such a terrible human. Why can't I get this shit straight? So yeah, it's like a total love and hate relationship.
It's so fucking real. So real.
Absolutely.
What is your, when I say current perspective, because I believe that these things probably always change. What's your current idea about potential afterlife? What happens when we die?
Oh, that's a great question. So this is a huge, you know, cut line in grief. You will have your people who are heaven, and you will have your people who are not. I honestly, I am a spiritual person. I am not a religious person. And so for me, it's more of a spiritual journey. It's more of an energy. I'm a martial artist. I've taken Tung Sudo for 15, 16, 17 years now. And so a lot of the stuff I practice inside the martial arts and Qigong is energy. And so for me, afterlife, anything death related, I feel like is held kind of in me. Follows me. I control that. I don't necessarily believe in heaven. I'm not saying that that's wrong for other people to believe in. Sometimes I will reference, my daughter looking over me or things like that. It's comforting to me in that regard, but I don't necessarily mean heaven. I mean, her spirit is always around me. I do feel like she's here. I feel like she's in me in some sense. I feel like she does look over me, just not from the traditional heaven sense. So for me, that's how I feel. I know that is like kind of disputable for a lot of people.
Well, no, that's why it's such a personal perspective, right? Because it'll depend on, well, again, a lot is definitely influenced by religion and then your relationship to religion. I grew up Catholic, then I fucked the gods. I'm like, y'all can fucking suck a dick up there. Like, I'm over y'all with y'all fucking punishment, punitive daddy. And now I'm like, well, maybe there's something to it. I'm still not bawling, but yeah. So absolutely. Now, when you think or feel your daughter, has she grown, or is she the same as she was 10 years ago?
You have such good questions. Like, these are such great questions because ironically, it's both. And so I never talk about this. I probably should talk about this more because I don't know if people will understand that, right? And so you will hear a lot of infant and pregnancy loss mothers reference their children or the ages they would be, the ages they are, I should say. I always say my daughter is this. Some people do not. And it's both for me. So I will always still feel like when she tackles me and when she like really gets to me, it's always her infant spirit. Always, 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 always. Now, ironically, when I celebrate her for Christmas, for birthdays, even outside of dated holidays, it's always where she currently is. So it's both for me. I don't know what answer you would get from other people, but when she visits me, it's definitely like when I feel her around me, when I feel safe, when I just feel like strong and like I have her energy around me, it's always her infant energy.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. Are you a dreamer?
I am.
Does she show up in your dreams?
Absolutely. Yeah. Not so much anymore. I'd say the first 5 years, she showed up a heck of a lot more than the last 5 years. But I almost feel like that's because the first 5 years, not saying that it was hard, like not saying that grief isn't hard now, but I was grasping at everything possible to kind of keep my daughter's memory alive, to honor her, to be with her still because I wasn't able to be with her physically, right? And so I think that my brain did that on its own to experience that time with her. And now that I've built something so wonderful around her memory and honoring her, I almost feel like my body doesn't need to do that anymore because I do that for myself. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How do you so again, I think that like this outside perspective is that like when people are grieving, and I'm using now the general grief, but specifically in your situation where it's like there's almost like a tiptoeing. Don't mention the child. Don't mention babies. Don't
Mhm.
mention kids. Don't mention, definitely not mention your kid. Like, what is your what is your feedback on that? And if you do want her mentioned, like, what is your celebration or your honor method, or like something you rejoice in actually?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can't speak for everybody, but I'm going to say, with being that I work with clients with infant and pregnancy loss, 98% of the people that are going to be asked this question are going to tell you, I want to talk about my child, or I want that option to talk about my child. My child was born, they existed, they're still here with me in some regard. And so being able to hold space for people to just ask about their kid, to ask about their baby, to ask about their pregnancy, that is really key and really, really helpful for people. It allows them to feel seen. It allows them to feel heard. It allows them to honor their child, right? I think a lot of us feel like, yes, we want to be seen. Yes, we want to be heard. Of course, it's a human emotion and need, right? If you go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But outside of that, we really don't want our children forgotten. We really want our babies honored. Like our names, our love, what they stood for, what they stand for. So yeah, I would say that I love to talk about mine. And you said, you had then asked me what is my preference for, forget how you worded it.
No, just like, in what kind of way of like celebrating, rejoicing in her, like, yeah, talking, yes. Well, tell us about your daughter. Tell us
Yeah.
what made you smile about her. Tell us like the little quirkiness, anything.
Yeah, like I think the memories, like people asking about memories of her, make me smile. They make me rejoice in her. They make me think about her on a really deep level, right? You can ask anyone about anybody, but when you ask about specific, what's your favorite memory, or tell me a time this, right? And not everyone can have that experience, because some people have miscarriages and they don't have living children, right? But you can still ask people about their experience of when they were pregnant, or their experience about conceiving children, right? What made you decide you wanted to have children? Like anything that stems around that experience, people really love to think of the story associated with that person, not just so much the memory of that person, right? You can say like, oh, what color hair did she have? What color eyes? That's great too, but actually asking for an experience that occurred in which there was a connection or a love for that moment, for that experience, or for that child, that's really helpful. So yeah, I do like talking about. I don't know. She was awesome. She was exactly like me. She was always cold, always cold. The only time she would cry is if she was cold. She was finicky with food and feeding, and I'm a very picky eater and finicky with that. She was definitely her mom's child. She had these amazing little, I'm a redhead, or at least like, I have red highlights naturally. I'm Irish. And she had these beautiful red eyebrows that were like always curious and stuff. I joked and said she was going to be a martial arts, following my footsteps, a martial artist. She was already super young and turning over before babies are supposed to turn over. Every time I'd like go to change her, she'd like throw her hands up and give me like an X block. She wouldn't like let me in. I was like, girl, you are going to be just like me, feisty and independent and not taking shit from anybody. So I think that's probably my favorite part about her. She's like me through and through, 100%.
Oh, I love that. That's glorious. I love that so much.
Yep.
Do you have a retreat coming up again? Because you had one in October. Am I saying that correctly?
You got it. Yeah. I had one this past October in northeastern Pennsylvania, actually southeastern Pennsylvania. Yep. There was a group of 7 of us that got together for the weekend, Thursday through Sunday. And we shared in stories. We did some yoga. We did some guided meditation. We did group therapy. We had some downtime, hot tub, journaling sessions. We decorated journals. We did amazing. We had white pumpkins and we all decorated them for our children. So yeah, it's just really awesome to be in a space with other lost parents who understand everything you're going through And, you don't have to feel embarrassed about your feelings, your jealousy, your sadness, because so many emotions come up. And it's just a bunch of other people to chat it out with, to cry it out with, to laugh it out with. Yeah, so I have that. And then I am planning on doing 2 in the coming year in 2026. I'll be putting some information out soon about those. I'm probably going to have one on the West Coast of the United States and one on the East Coast of the United States. So I'm going to try to cater to both coasts so that more parents will be able to have the option to come.
Yeah. So, anything that you want to share or talk about before you give us like the where can we find you? I'll make sure that everything is linked everywhere, but just giving you any space more.
No, I mean, I guess I just want to tell people if they are experiencing any kind of grief, whether it's child loss, whether it's the loss of another family member, like I said earlier, whether it's the loss of a job and you had it for 30 years and now your life's a complete mess and you feel like you're in shambles. I just want people to know that if other people aren't living your reality, stop listening to them. They have no idea what you are going through, nor is it really any of their business. And the people who are judging you, they're judging you because they're not happy with something in their own lives. They're judging you because they have deep-seated things that they haven't dealt with that's hard for them to deal with and they don't want to address. So it's easier to tell other people what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. And if anything, I want people to come away knowing anytime that happens to you, you need to do what you feel in your heart is right for you, what's aligned with you, what's authentic to you. Because if you don't, you are going to stay stuck so much longer. And that comes from a place of loss, a place of business, right? A place of, anything really, anything in life. You get to govern your path. The rest of the world does not get to govern your path. And advocating for yourself is key. The reason I am where I am in this journey, the reason I'm now helping other lost parents, the reason I've taken, the neuro side of things and spun it into the grief side of things is because I saw a vision and I didn't let anyone else tell me that that vision wasn't correct. It was my truth, and your truth is really what matters. So if anything, I hope people take that away from this.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time, for having the patience. Tell us where we can find you and everywhere and what you're up to. And
sure. You can find me. I have 2 different social media handles. I have my retreat side of things and my mentorship, and that is Angela AV Rebuilds. That is in honor of my daughter, of course. And then to fund my child loss retreats and infant loss retreats, I have a product-based business that I started in my daughter's honor before I started advocating on the neuro side of anything. And it's called Fly AV Fly. And it's customized shirts, headbands. I support other small businesses. So anyone who makes handmade items, it's kind of like a little bit of a gift shop. And you can get some stuff there. I have bath bombs, all that kind of stuff, some salts, some oils. And so that funds the retreats, but you can Fly AV Fly and Angela and AV Rebuild. Those are my handles.
Last one. What's the song that reminds you of her or that you play for you both?
Oh, hands down, 100 million%. Don't even have to think about it. Sweet Child of Mine.
I love that. Beautiful.
And what's funny is that that song wasn't even written for a child. I think it was written for his girlfriend or wife or something. And whenever she would cry, whenever she was cold and she would always cry, I'd swaddle her and I would sing Sweet Child of Mine to her and she would immediately stop crying.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time again and for sharing your experience and your knowledge here and your wisdom. And thank you so much, everyone. Rich and hydrated. Angela here in your favorite opinionated legendary Miroslav. And we'll see you next time again. Don't log off yet. I'm just going to close the recording, okay?